Nita had been walking since early morning, moving across the dry Arizona land with the steady pace of someone used to long journeys. The sun was warm but not harsh yet, and the wind carried the smell of dust and wild plants. She had taken this trail many times before, usually with a group from her village. But this time, she traveled alone. She was delivering a message to a neighboring clan and planned to return before nightfall. Everything seemed peaceful as she walked, listening to the distant cry of a hawk and the soft crunch of sand beneath her sandals. But peace in the desert never lasted long. As she stepped near a fallen log, a sudden rustle broke the silence. Before she could move away, a small rattlesnake struck from the shadows beneath the wood. The bite came fast for her to dodge. She felt a sharp pain on the upper side of her leg, and she gasped as the sting spread like fire under her skin. Her breath caught, and she stumbled backward, gripping her skirt in shock and disbelief. The snake retreated, sliding away into the grass as if it had never been there at all. Nita stood still for several seconds, her heart racing. She knew the desert well, and she knew rattlesnakes. Most bites were not deadly if treated quickly, but she had seen people die when help came too late. Fear rushed through her, but she forced herself to stay calm. Panic would only make the venom move faster. She looked around, searching for anyone, but the land was empty. No riders, no travelers. Only scattered brush, rocks, and the endless open plain. Her leg throbbed harder with each passing moment. She knelt down, trying to breathe slowly, but her hands were shaking. She lifted her skirt just enough to look at the wound without exposing herself fully. The bite was high and comfortably. Dangerously high, and she knew she could not reach it properly, nor could she treat it alone. Even touching the area made her feel faint. Her chest tightened as she realized the seriousness of her situation. She tried to walk forward, but her leg felt weak. Still, she pushed herself on, taking careful steps. She told herself she only needed to reach the main dirt trail where settlers sometimes passed. Maybe she would find help. Maybe someone would ride by. Minutes turned into what felt like hours as she walked, every step sending pain up her side. Sweat ran down her forehead despite the mild weather. Her breathing grew shallow, and the world around her seemed to blur. Finally, when she felt as though she might collapse, she heard the distant sound of hooves hitting the ground. A rider. She turned her head and searched until she saw the shape of a horse moving along the trail. At first she thought she was imagining it. Her vision was starting to swim, and the sunlight flickered strangely in her eyes. But no, there he was. A man on horseback, moving calmly at an easy pace. She tried to call out, but her voice cracked. She waved her arm weakly instead. The rider slowed, then changed direction when he saw her. As he came closer, she recognized the wide hat, the leather vest, and the sturdy build of a rancher. He had a calm presence, as if used to solving problems in quiet, steady ways. His name was Caleb, though she did not know it yet. When Caleb reached her, he immediately noticed something was wrong. Her face was pale, and her breathing uneven. Her hand was pressed against her skirt in a protective, worried way. He climbed down from his horse without hesitation. "You look hurt," he said gently. "What happened?" Nita tried to speak clearly, but her voice trembled. "Snake, it bit me." The concern on Caleb's face grew sharper. "Where?" Nita looked away, embarrassed. The bite was in a place she didn't want to mention, especially not to a stranger. Among her people, such injuries were private, handled only by trusted family or healers. She held her skirt tightly, unsure how to answer. Caleb noticed her discomfort and softened his tone even more. "It's all right," he said kindly. "You don't have to say more than you want to, but I need to know how bad it is, so I can help you. Snake bites can turn dangerous fast." She hesitated, her heart pounding. She could feel the venom working deeper, spreading a cold numbness around the painful burn. She knew she didn't have much time. She lifted her skirt slightly, only enough to show the area of the bite, while still protecting her dignity. Caleb looked for only a second, long enough to understand the situation, then respectfully looked away. "It's high," he said softly. "I see. That's a tough spot. You can't treat that alone." Nita lowered her skirt immediately, grateful that he didn't stare or make her feel exposed. Caleb reached into his saddlebag and pulled out a small medical kit. Ranchers often carried them because accidents were common far from town. He knelt down beside her, but kept his eyes on her face rather than anywhere near the wound. "I can help you," he said, "but I'll only do what is needed. Nothing more. You'll be safe." Nita searched his eyes. She saw no disrespect, no hidden intentions, only sincerity and concern. She took a deep breath and nodded. "All right," she whispered. Caleb spoke gently as he worked, explaining each step so she wouldn't feel afraid. He checked the swelling, the color, and the warmth of her skin around the bite, always careful to keep her comfortable. The venom was spreading faster than he liked, and her pulse was getting weaker. "I'm going to clean the area," he said. "It might hurt. Try to breathe slowly." She gripped the earth beside her, grounding herself as he prepared the tools. Her leg trembled, but she stayed still. Caleb worked with steady hands, doing everything he could to slow the venom and prevent further damage. He kept his focus entirely on the task, never letting his eyes wander or giving her any reason to feel uneasy. His calm voice filled the silence, reassuring her again and again that she was doing well and that she would be all right. Several minutes later, which felt like an eternity to Nita, he finally said, "The worst part is over. You should start to feel some relief soon." She let out a shaky breath she didn't realize she had been holding. The burning sensation in her leg eased slightly, though she still felt weak. "Thank you," she whispered. Caleb helped her sit up properly, but he didn't rush her. He stayed near in case she fainted. "You're not safe to walk yet," he said. "The venom took a lot of your strength. I have to take you somewhere you can rest." Nita looked around the empty land and realized she had no other choice. She nodded. Caleb lifted her carefully onto his horse, making sure she was stable and comfortable before climbing up behind her. He kept his hands gentle and respectful, avoiding any touch that might embarrass her. The horse moved slowly at first, then gained a steady rhythm as they headed toward his ranch several miles away. Nita leaned slightly against him, not out of trust at first, but out of exhaustion. But the longer they rode, the more she felt her fear fade. Caleb rode with certainty, guiding the horse like someone who knew every inch of the land. She listened to his calm breaths and felt the steady rise and fall of his chest beneath his shirt. It was strangely comforting. She realized that if he had not appeared at that moment, she might have collapsed alone on the trail. As they continued toward the ranch, Nita looked out at the golden land stretching far into the horizon. The sky was big, open, and endlessly blue. A part of her still trembled from the shock, but another part felt strangely safe. She had met a stranger in the most frightening moment of her journey, yet he had treated her with respect, kindness, and patience. She did not know what awaited her at his ranch or how long recovery would take. But for the first time since the snake struck, she felt hope, quiet, gentle, and real. Caleb glanced back at her with a reassuring smile. "You're going to be all right," he said. And for the first time since the bite, she believed it. Caleb rode slowly toward his ranch, keeping the horse steady so Nita wouldn't feel more pain. He could sense how weak she had become. Her breathing was shallow, and every few minutes, she leaned a little more against his shoulder, not out of choice, but because her strength was draining. Caleb kept one hand lightly on the reins, and the other close enough to catch her if she slipped. He didn't want her to feel embarrassed, so he kept his movements gentle and quiet, giving her space, but making sure she was safe. Nita tried to sit upright, but her body felt heavier with every mile. The venom had already traveled far, and even though Caleb treated the bite as best he could, her muscles were still shaking. She looked out at the land, watching the distant hills rise and fall like slow waves. Normally, she found comfort in nature, but today, everything felt far away. She felt tired in a way she had never felt before. Caleb could feel her shifting behind him. "If you feel dizzy, just tell me," he said softly. Her voice was small, but steady. "I'm all right. Just tired." "I know," he replied. "You've been through a lot." "We're almost there." It took almost half an hour to reach the ranch. When the house finally came into view, a simple wooden building with a small porch, Nita felt a strange mix of relief and worry. She had never stayed with settlers before. She didn't know their customs well, and she wondered how his family would respond to seeing her in this condition. She didn't want to be a burden. When they reached the front of the house, Caleb stopped the horse and carefully helped her down. She almost collapsed when her feet touched the ground, but he caught her before she fell. She didn't say anything, but her face showed gratitude. Caleb supported her with one arm while guiding her inside. As soon as they entered, a woman in her late 20s appeared from the kitchen. She wore a simple apron, her dark hair tied back neatly. This was Mary, Caleb's younger sister. She took one look at Nita's pale face and rushed forward. "Caleb, what happened?" "Snake bite," he explained. "High up on her leg? Bad one." "I did what I could, but she needs rest." Mary didn't hesitate. She placed an arm around Nita's back and guided her toward a small room near the hallway. "Bring her here," she said. "We'll make her comfortable." Nita felt a deep wave of relief wash over her. Mary's voice carried warmth and care, and for the first time since the bite, Nita felt like she was being treated not as a stranger, but as a guest. Inside the room, Mary helped her sit on the bed and supported her back with pillows. Nita winced slightly as she moved, but the clean sheets and cool room offered comfort. Caleb stayed near the door, giving her space while Mary checked her condition. "Do you feel lightheaded?" Mary asked gently. A little, Nita admitted. "That's normal," Mary said. "Your body is still fighting the venom. You'll need rest, water, and calm." Caleb brought a cup of water and handed it to Mary, who gave it to Nita in slow, careful sips. After drinking, Nita felt a faint sensation of strength returning. It's just enough to speak more clearly. "You both are very kind," she said softly. "I didn't want to trouble anyone," Mary smiled. "You're no trouble. Anyone would help in a situation like this." Caleb shook his head. "Not everyone would have kept walking after a bite like that." "You're strong." Nita lowered her gaze, feeling shy under the praise. She wasn't used to attention, especially not from strangers, but their words felt sincere, and that eased her heart. Mary stepped outside to prepare a warm herbal drink to help with swelling, leaving Caleb and Nita alone. Caleb stood leaning against the doorframe, making sure she didn't feel uncomfortable with his presence. "How far were you walking?" he asked. "To the neighboring clan," she answered. "It was supposed to be an easy trip. I've walked that trail many times." Caleb nodded slowly. "The desert doesn't always play fair. Snakes hide where you least expect." Nita gave a faint smile. "That is true." A moment of quiet passed. Caleb could see she was trying to stay awake, but her eyelids kept drifting downward. Her body was exhausted. "You can rest," he said gently. "You're safe here."
"I know,"
she whispered, and her eyes finally closed. She didn't fall into deep sleep right away, but a light rest where she heard some sounds of the ranch, the soft neigh of horses outside, Mary's footsteps in the hallway, and Caleb's voice speaking quietly with her. It was comforting, and little by little, the fear she carried since the bite faded when she woke again. The sun had shifted, telling her she had slept for at least an hour. Mary was sitting beside the bed, stirring a small bowl of herbs with warm water. "You're awake," Mary said with a smile. "Good, how do you feel?" "A bit stronger," Nita replied. "That's good. Drink this. It'll help with the swelling." The drink was bitter, but Nita trusted Mary. She drank it all and felt warmth spread through her stomach. Mary helped adjust the blanket around her and checked her temperature, nodding in approval. "You'll recover well," Mary said. Caleb did the hard part already. Nita looked down, remembering the moment she had trusted him in the middle of the desert. She hadn't expected a rancher to be so respectful, so patient. Among her people, trust was something earned slowly. Yet Caleb had earned it without even trying. When Caleb returned to the room, carrying a fresh bowl of water and a clean cloth, Nita's heart beat a little faster, not from fear, but from gratitude. "How are you feeling now?" he asked. "Better," she said. "Your sister helped a lot," Mary laughed softly. "He's the reason you made it here alive." "This one has been patching up injured ranch hands since he was a boy." Caleb shrugged modestly. "Ranch life teaches you fast." The three of them shared a small, comfortable silence. Even though Nita was a guest from a different world, different customs, different traditions, she didn't feel out of place. Mary's kindness bridged the gap, and Caleb's quiet strength made her feel safe. Later, As the evening sun painted the windows in warm colors, Mary left to prepare dinner. Caleb stayed a while longer, making sure Nita had what she needed. He didn't say much, but his presence felt steady. Like a safe shadow at the edge of the room, Nita watched him for a moment before speaking. "When you found me, I thought I might fall in the sand and never stand up again." Caleb looked at her with calm eyes. "You were brave. Many people panic when they're bitten. You kept moving. That helped save your life?" She lowered her gaze. "I didn't feel brave, he said gently. "Fear doesn't erase courage." Nita felt a warmth in her chest at his words. She wasn't used to strangers speaking to her with such sincerity. Most settlers looked at people from her tribe with suspicion or distance. But Caleb didn't act like that at all. He spoke as if she were simply another person, worthy of respect. As the sky darkened outside, Nita drifted in and out of light sleep. Each time she woke, she saw Caleb or Mary nearby, checking on her, making sure she drank water, giving her small bits of food. She realized they weren't doing this out of obligation. They were doing it because they cared. Later in the night, when Mary returned with a lantern to light the room, Nita managed to sit up with her help. She felt stronger than before, though still far from normal. "Will I recover fully?" she asked. Mary placed a reassuring hand on her arm. "Yes, it'll take a couple of days, but you will be fine." Caleb nodded. "You'll walk again without trouble? But until then, rest. No rushing." Nita smiled softly. "I will listen." For the first time since the bite, she truly believed she would recover. She didn't know exactly what the next days would bring, but she felt safe in this small ranch house. Safe with Mary's gentle care. Safe with Caleb's steady presence. She closed her eyes again, letting the warmth of the lantern and the quiet voices around her lull her back to rest. The fear, the pain, the shock of the desert, they all felt like distant memories now. She had been alone when the snake struck. Nita woke the next morning to the soft sound of a rooster calling outside and the gentle smell of warm bread drifting through the house. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. The ceiling above her was wooden, smooth, and shaped differently from the homes she knew. Then everything from the day before returned to her: the rattlesnake, the dessert, the pain, and Caleb lifting her onto his horse. She remembered Mary's warm hands and calming voice. Slowly, she sat up, surprised by how much stronger she felt. Her legs still hurt, but the burning fire had become a dull ache. She bent forward carefully, touching the blanket as she tested her strength. When she moved, she felt a light stiffness in her muscles, but no dizziness like before. She whispered to herself that she was lucky. There were many stories in her village about snake bites ending in tragedy. She wasn't sure if her people believed in fate, but she felt strongly that meeting Caleb on the trail at that moment had changed everything. Mary stepped into the room holding a small tray. "Oh, you're awake," she said, smiling brightly. "Good. I was hoping you'd feel better this morning." Nita smiled back. "I think I do." "That's what we want to hear," Mary said kindly. She placed the tray on the small table beside the bed. "I brought you a little breakfast. Bread, some berries, and warm tea." The simple gesture touched Nita more than she expected. She picked up the cup of tea with steady hands, and the warmth soothed her. "Thank you," she said softly. "You've helped me so much. I don't know how to repay you." Mary waved her hand playfully. "Nonsense. You don't owe us anything. People help each other. That's how it should be." Nita ate. She noticed the gentle morning light settling across the room. It painted everything in warm gold: her blanket, the wooden floor, and Mary's calm face. She almost felt at home. "Is Caleb outside?" Nita asked after a moment. Mary nodded. "He went to feed the horses. He said he'd check on you when he finished." Nita's chest warmed slightly when she heard that. She didn't fully understand why, but something about Caleb's quiet presence made her feel safe. She had felt that from the very beginning, even when she was scared and in pain. After breakfast, Mary helped her stand. Nita moved slowly, leaning on the wall for balance, but her legs held her weight. Mary guided her to the porch to get some fresh air. Each step felt like a small victory. When they stepped outside, the bright sun greeted her, along with the open land stretching far into the horizon. The sky was a clear blue, and the wind smelled like dry grass and horses. Caleb was near the corral, brushing a strong brown horse. When he saw Nita on the porch, he paused and walked toward her with a small but genuine smile. "You're up," he said. "That's good to see." Nita felt a quiet warmth inside her. "I feel better today." "You look better," he replied. "Walking already means you're healing fast." Mary left them together for a moment, saying she needed to check the stew in the kitchen. Nita stood quietly beside Caleb as he leaned against the porch railing, looking out over the land. She liked how he didn't force conversation. He simply let the moment breathe. "You scared me yesterday," he said after a pause, his voice gentle. "You were so pale, I thought I'd lose you before we reached the ranch." Nita lowered her eyes. "I thought so too for a while." He nodded solemnly. "Snake bites can turn bad real quick. You handled it better than most folks could." She gave him a small smile. "I kept telling myself I had to reach someone. If I had fallen there, the desert would have swallowed me." Caleb looked at her with admiration. "You fought hard. Not many people stay calm like you did." Nita didn't know how to respond. Praise was not something she received often. Her village respected strength, but they rarely spoke it aloud unless in ceremony. Hearing simple, sincere words from Caleb felt strangely comforting. As the day went on, Nita spent time sitting on the porch while Caleb and Mary worked around the ranch. Caleb kept checking on her to make sure she wasn't walking too much or straining herself. He always spoke softly, as if worried his voice might somehow hurt her. He asked if she needed water, food, or rest. He treated her like someone valuable, not like a problem or a burden. In the afternoon, Mary returned with a basket of vegetables from the garden. "I need help sorting these," she said cheerfully. "Think you're strong enough to sit and work with your hands?" Nita nodded eagerly. She wanted to help, even in small ways. She didn't like feeling helpless or dependent. Mary sat beside her on the porch, and together they sorted carrots, potatoes, and onions. They talked in simple conversation about the weather, about their families, about stories from childhood. Nita found herself smiling often. Mary had a warm personality that made it easy to relax. She even made Nita laugh once or twice, something she hadn't done since before the snake bite. But every now and then, when the wind shifted or a sound from the corral reached them, Nita would glance toward Caleb. She watched the way he moved, calm, confident, steady. Whether he lifted hay bales, checked the horses' hooves, or fixed a broken fence rail, he did everything with care. It was the same care he showed her. Late in the day, Caleb approached the porch again, wiping sweat from his forehead with his sleeve. "How's the leg?" he asked. "It hurts a little," Nita admitted. "But much less than before," he nodded approvingly. "Good. You've made more progress in one day than most people do in 3. You're stronger than you think." Nita felt her cheeks warm. "I had help," she said quietly. He looked into her eyes for a moment. Something unspoken passed between them, a kind of understanding that didn't need words. Then he cleared his throat gently. "You should rest again before dinner," he said. "I will." As the sun slowly set, painting the sky in deep oranges and soft purples, Nita rested in the small room again. Her thoughts drifted back to the moment Caleb found her. She remembered his steady hands, the calm in his voice, and the way he looked away whenever she felt embarrassed. She had never met someone like him, someone who took care of a stranger with such natural kindness. She realized she didn't feel like a stranger here anymore. After dinner, Caleb told her about the land around the ranch, how long he'd lived there, how his father built the house, how he and Mary worked together to take care of everything. Nita listened with interest. She shared small pieces of her own life, to her favorite stories from her grandmother. The plants she knew well, the paths she walked as a child. Caleb listened carefully, never interrupting, always asking gentle questions that showed he truly cared to hear more. As the night grew quiet and the stars filled the sky, Nita felt a peace she hadn't expected. She had come close to losing her life, but instead she found comfort, kindness, and maybe something more she couldn't name yet. When she lay down to sleep, she whispered a soft thanks to the night air, not just for surviving, but for ending up at this ranch with two people who treated her with more warmth than she imagined. She closed her eyes knowing that tomorrow she would grow even stronger. And she wondered, just a little, what her life would have been like if she hadn't crossed paths with Caleb in the desert. Nita woke on her third morning at the ranch feeling almost like herself again. Her leg was still tender, but the sharp pain had faded into a manageable soreness. She sat up slowly, stretching her arms as sunlight streamed softly through the window. The warmth of the room, the smell of fresh hay drifting in from outside, and the quiet peacefulness made her feel calm. For the first time since the incident, she felt strong enough to move on her own. She stood carefully, testing her balance. Her legs held firm. She breathed out with quiet relief. Each step she had taken toward recovery felt like a miracle. She wasn't sure if it was the herbs Mary gave her or the simple comfort of being cared for, but whatever it was, it had worked. Mary entered the room with a small bowl of warm porridge. She smiled warmly when she saw Nita standing. "Look at you," she said cheerfully. "Another day, and you'll be running." Nita smiled back. "I feel much better today. Can see that," Mary replied. "Eat this then, if you want. I can help you wash up. After that, you should be able to walk outside without trouble." Nita nodded gratefully and ate slowly, enjoying the gentle sweetness of the porridge. Every moment in this house felt like an act of kindness. She wondered how she could ever repay it. After she washed and dressed, she stepped outside, breathing in the morning air deeply. The sky was clear and bright, and the ranch stretched out across the land like a quiet world of its own. Horses grazed peacefully. Birds hopped along the wooden fence. And beyond everything, the desert rolled on endlessly. Caleb was near the barn, tightening a rope around a fence post. He looked up when he heard footsteps. When he saw Nita walking on her own, his face lit with a proud, gentle smile. "Well now," he said, wiping his hands on his jeans. "It's good to see you up and moving." Nita walked toward him with careful but confident steps. "I owe that to both of you," she said. "If not for you, I would not be standing here today." Caleb shook his head modestly. "You owe me nothing. I did what anyone with sense would have done." Nita met his eyes quietly. "I don't believe just anyone would have helped like you did." He opened his mouth as if to reply, but didn't. Instead, he gave a small, thoughtful smile. Mary stepped out from the house carrying a small bag that held dried herbs, bandages, and 2 cloth rolls. "If you're feeling strong enough, we should take you home today," she said kindly. "Your family must be worried." Nita's chest tightened a little, not from fear, but from the thought of leaving. Over the past days, she had grown used to this place. She had grown used to Mary's laughter, Caleb's calm voice, and the feeling of safety the ranch carried. But she knew Mary was right. Her family had probably been searching for her. "I am ready," she said softly. Caleb saddled his horse, making sure it moved gently for her. He helped her up carefully, with the same respectful touch he had shown from the beginning. Nita felt a familiar warmth in her chest again. She wasn't afraid this time. She trusted him fully. Mary handed Nita the small bag of herbs. "These will help if the soreness returns," she said. "Make sure your people know how to use them." "I will tell them," Nita replied. She took Mary's hand in gratitude. "You have been like a sister to me. I will never forget your kindness." Mary squeezed her hand gently. "You're always welcome here." Caleb climbed onto the horse behind Nita, keeping enough distance so she felt comfortable but close enough to support her. With a light tap of his heel, the horse moved forward, and they began the quiet journey toward her village. As they rode, the land around them changed from open plains to rolling hills dotted with wild plants. Nita watched the scenery pass by slowly, feeling the wind brush against her face. She felt strangely bittersweet. She was going home, but she was also leaving a place where she had felt cared for in ways she hadn't expected. Caleb spoke softly behind her. "You sure you're ready?" She nodded. "Yes, thanks to you." They continued riding until the familiar land of her people came into view. Small homes made of wood and clay appeared in the distance. Smoke from cooking fires rose gently into the air. As they approached, 2 figures rushed forward, her younger brother and her aunt. Their eyes widened in shock when they saw her. Nita, her brother shouted, running toward her. We thought something happened to you. Caleb slowed the horse and stopped. Nita slid down carefully, supported by her brother. Her aunt embraced her gently but tightly, as if she feared Nita might vanish again. We searched for you yesterday, her aunt said with tears in her eyes. We found your tracks but lost them near the canyon. We feared the worst. Nita placed a calming hand on her aunt's arm. I am all right, she said softly. This rancher helped me. A snake bit me on my journey. I would not be alive if not for him. Her family turned toward Caleb with a mixture of gratitude and surprise. It was rare for a rancher to bring home someone from their tribe, especially with such care. Nita's aunt stepped forward. Thank you, she said sincerely. You saved her life. Caleb nodded respectfully. She was strong. She did her part. I just made sure she didn't fall. Nita's brother took the small herb bag from her and examined it with curiosity. These will help, he asked. Yes, Nita said. Mary Caleb's sister gave them. They know healing too. Her aunt gestured toward their home. Come inside, child. You must rest. Nita turned to Caleb. She felt a heaviness in her heart she hadn't expected. I don't know how to thank you enough. Caleb gave her a soft smile. You already did. You healed. That's enough. She looked at him quietly, taking in the calm strength in his eyes. She wondered if he knew how deeply his kindness had affected her life. She didn't know how to express it in words, so instead she reached into the beaded pouch at her side. She pulled out a small hand-carved token animal figure, carved from dark wood. It was something her grandmother had taught her to make. A symbol of gratitude and connection. She held it out to Caleb. This is for you, she said. It means you are someone we honor, someone we remember. Caleb took it slowly, his expression touched. Thank you, he said quietly. I'll keep it safe. For a long moment, they stood facing each other, the warm wind brushing past them. Something unspoken lingered in the air. Bond formed in a moment of danger and strengthened through quiet kindness. Finally, Caleb tipped his hat. If you ever need anything, you know where the ranch is? Nita nodded softly. I will remember. Caleb turned his horse and began the ride back home. Nita watched him until he disappeared beyond the hills, the carved token safely in his hand. As she stepped into her village, she felt a deep sense of gratitude not only for her life, but for the unexpected connection she had found. She knew she would tell her family every detail of what happened. And she also knew that somewhere across the desert, a rancher carried a small piece of her people's respect. Nita looked at the horizon one last time,